Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen, however you're consuming. Appreciate you taking the time to do so. We've got an amazing show for you today. One of my favorite interviews I've ever done on this show is with the legendary Ernesto Lacayo. Most recently played with the Duke City Gladiators, is a veteran, a legendary veteran of the indoor and arena football game, entering his 14th season next year with the San Diego Strike Force. So got a chance to chop it up with him about his start in arena football, living in his 1976 Volkswagen bus for a little bit. Some of the things he's learned along the way about arena and indoor football and being a kicker in that such a niche sport. And of course, the LaunchPad Kickoff Tee event that is coming up in January. So more info to come on that in the interview. So make sure you check that out and go give Ernesto a follow on social and let him know that you heard him on Off the Wall. Then we'll also dive into some IFL and AF1 news after that. But before we get into the interview, before we get into any of that stuff, it's social plug time. If you don't already, please give us a follow on all of our socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on X/Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on all three of those things. So if you don't already, please give us a follow on there and like some of the stuff. Browse the old feed. I'm sure you'll find something that you like if you're listening to this. And if you're watching on YouTube, please thumbs up the video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps the channel grow slowly but surely. We're getting there and we're climbing up. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to the show page and rate the show 5 stars. Share the show with a friend. This is like I said, this is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I learned a lot about the kicking game and about arena and indoor football from Ernesto, and I feel like you will too. So share it with a friend that you think would enjoy it. And I don't plug the website nearly as much as I should. Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball.com, offthewallfb.com for do all sorts of blogs. So you can find the podcast on there. I'm going to be making the website a little bit more of a priority here soon. So go check that out as well. So let's not waste any more time. Here's the interview with Ernesto. All right, joining us on the show this week, we have a legendary veteran of the indoor and arena football game. He spent the past couple of seasons with the Duke City Gladiators and will be taking his talents to San Diego for the 2025 IFL season. His name is Ernesto Lacayo. Ernesto, thank you so much for hopping on the show. How's the offseason treating you heading into 2025?
Pretty good already getting started with my preparation for next season. And it's always an honor to be talking about arena footballing and kicking at the same time.
Yeah, love it. Doing anything in particular with kicking, or you're just doing your general off-season training?
I mean, every year you got to keep adapting. As older as I get, you got to change things up so it doesn't become like a plateau effect. So every year I'm doing something different and making sure that the leg still feels young, and training alongside younger guys kind of helps out all the time.
Yeah, those younger guys will keep you feeling young.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your football journey and how you got into arena football.
Oh man, I mean, of course, coming out of college, we all have the expectation of wanting to go to the NFL, and unfortunately, being really difficult to get in. I was part of the class of 2011, so there's other avenues, and at that time, there was the Arena Football League, there was the Indoor Football League, the CFL, and then obviously the NFL. So. And actually, there was the UFL at the time that just finished. I remember watching that in college. So coming out of college, doing so well in the NAIA division, I was presented with an opportunity. And the first year franchise was the Nebraska Danger in Grand Island, so which was about 20 to 25 minutes from Hastings College, my alma mater. And Mike Davis, the coach from Vegas team, was my head coach.
Nice.
Dixie Wooten was the quarterback of our team, and Curtis Chin was a receiver. So a lot of these coaches were teammates of mine.
How's that make you feel?
Well, I'm sure I'd be curious to see what they say after all these years.
Right.
All these years. So, but that was the avenue I took, and I didn't expect to be playing as long as I have been. But it's one of those things where you enter the arena leagues, and I tell a lot of these young guys, you have to respect the indoor/arena game because there's a huge learning curve. I mean, we all know the story of the Kurt Warner, but you really don't understand what you're getting yourself into until you're in the game. And that being said, the learning count, the small goalposts, the different material of the football, and back then the IFL had a very small football, so controlling that ball was was very interesting. I'll say that.
Hmm.
It was more designed for throwing, but
Yeah.
the leagues were evolutionized, the ball's gotten a lot bigger. At the same time, a little bit better of a sweet spot, even though it's non-existent. But it's been great
Yeah.
learning every year and hearing veterans and learning the guys before me and having them share some like tips and tricks of the trade.
So what was like your first exposure to arena football? Was it the seeking the opportunity, or did you know about it like before?
I mean, I've seen it when I was growing up, seeing the SaberCats because I'm from the Bay
Oh
Area.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
watching, like the Mark Greaves and to me one of the best quarterbacks of arena football history,
for
and
sure.
all
Yeah.
those years that they won championships. So I remember seeing it, those late nights, highlights they would show after I've done my homework, and just seeing how strange it was. And
Yeah.
as I got older and in college, I kept hearing about arena football, and I've come across a lot of coaches who have played in that league, and each one will tell you almost the same thing, including myself. It is a purgatory or limbo of the professional world. But that being
Yeah.
said, there's a beauty in it because everyone has great memories and great stories.
Yeah.
So when these young kids are asking me what's arena football like, I'm like, well, if you take the movie Major League and semi-pro and combine those two, it is the tip of the iceberg of what you'll get.
Yeah.
But then just knowing about it, and then in college when I got that opportunity, having to go try out for the Nebraska Danger, I wasn't ready because of the fact that I had never seen goalposts so small. You go from
Yeah.
big goalposts to now small, and then they're telling you at that time you couldn't kick the ball out of bounds or past the end zone. Where in college and in the NFL, you're taught to do is kick the ball long and deep.
You're encouraged to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole skill set of the specialist that really wasn't something I understood. I was very one dimensional, and so every game, every practice, I had to really teach myself and learn. And also, any opportunity I got to talk to a legend or a guy who had been playing in the game, you kind of feel them out and ask them questions and be a sponge. And that's really was the experience for me. And now I said I was going to play 3, 4 years of professional ball,
Yeah.
and here I
Yeah.
am, year 14. So,
Yeah. A little bit more than three or four. Yeah.
oh yeah,
It's always funny to me to hear players compare it. I've never heard the major league and semi-pro. That's good. Like that seems pretty spot on from what I can see from the outside looking in.
I mean it's funny. I mean because I love those. I love minor league stories and everything from every
Yeah.
sport. And when it's all said and done, I really do plan to write a book about my arena experience, not from the kicker's
Oh yes.
perspective, but
Yeah.
just every year or every team I've been on is a chapter within itself, and could be turned into a comedy. But at the same time, I want people to understand that this game has given so much to me, and me at this point in my career trying to give it back, and at the same
Right.
time create a really good light for it. So
Well, let me know when the pre-order goes live for that book. I'll be number one in line. Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
So were there any specific players or mentors who had a significant impact on your career as a kicker, whether it be in arena or the outdoor game?
There's a couple. I mean, my coach right out of college was to me, I was a big 49er fan, and my hero was Joe Nenny, who was the kicker for the Niners in the early 2000s, played a
Okay.
60-year career, was a local legend of San Jose State, and he became my coach and literally mentored me to become the professional
Wow.
that I am today. Now, when it comes to the arena game, there's a couple names, not necessarily all kickers. A good friend of mine who was a center too, Brett Kavanaugh for the Wichita Wild, was
Mhm.
also on the team in training camp for the Nebraska Danger my rookie year. But he was a very important figure outside of the kicking game to really help me handle, the craziness of what arena football can be day in and day
Right.
out. As far as the kickers, oh, my heroes. I mean, I got a chance to play against the great Parker Douglas, Brian Jackson, Carlos Martinez, rivals of
Yeah.
mine that were great legends like an Adrian Trevino, Tommy Freever. I can go on with this. And then that's the thing. I have a great memory with all these guys. If you don't talk about these guys, people forget about them. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about the legacy. I know that some of these guys were rival of mine, but at the same time, it's iron sharpens iron, the respect factor with it. So, all these guys played a pivotal role in my career, learning and changing up my technique, or new tricks of the trade of wanting to do things. Because every arena is different. Obviously, it's a little bit
Yeah.
You have to be very, very calm, collective at the same time, know your surroundings to be able to maneuver with this ball. So a lot of these guys play a pivotal role in my career, and just seeing legends of the game, it's amazing to watch from the perspective of the kicker because yeah, we might be the quiet ones on the team, or there are
Yeah.
some that like to be a little more showboaty, but when you sit
Uh-huh.
back and see the game, play out in itself, you see all these guys and what they do. And when you get a chance to talk with them one on one, that's really the beauty is that everyone has a story of where they got to. And now it's like I see all the young guys coming in, all these 20-some-year-olds that were probably in grade school my rookie year. It's interesting to hear these stories. And then some
Yeah.
guys, when they ask you questions, it's great because you're like, let's see if you really want to know what it's really like. So
Yeah. Do you want my answer or the answer you want to hear? Because they
exactly.
may not be the same. So before we dive too far into the football journey,
Mhm.
or get too football heavy, I should say, I was doing some prep for our chat and I saw a story that you lived in a 1960 or 1976, excuse me,
Mhm.
Volkswagen bus for a couple years while chasing the kicking dream.
Yeah.
Tell me about the bus and what was that experience like?
I've had that. I still have that bus. I only drive old cars, old air-cooled vehicles. I'm a side mechanic. I like restoring these things, and I
Oh,
believe things
nice.
were made better before than they were today. So I
Yeah.
drive a 71 Baja Bug and a 76 bus, but the bus itself was given to me when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was in a warehouse in Oakland, California. It was abandoned. My uncle had forgot about it, and they didn't know if it worked. But for months, when my dad was working with my uncle, I was playing and discovering this bus. It had a kitchen, it had beds, it was a crazy thing. I thought it was the Ninja Turtle bus because it looked very
Yeah.
similar at the time. So when
Yeah.
they found that I'd taken a liking to this, my uncle's like, "You guys can have it if you guys can get it going." And it's small. It turned out to be a small little fuel line, and we got it going. And not too long after my uncle passed away, so as homage to him, I restored it. Now it started really when I was in Portland for the Portland Steel in the AFL. I took it up there. I was,
Hmm.
driving it every single day, and I had an apartment with the team, but you know, I didn't vibe well with the chemistry with some of the guys. So I'm like, I might as well stick in the van, and it was a big van life community
Yeah.
that I got a chance to learn. And then I lived 3 years out of my van in San Diego, in Carlsbad, California, outside of John
Wow.
Carney's gym. And I was doing that mainly because I wanted to chase this dream still. I knew I had to fight an uphill battle as an arena kicker, but I needed to live, eat, and breathe the kicking game from a legend like John Carney and other
Yeah.
guys who I was training with at that time. It was the best experience of my life. I mean, when I first played with San Diego in 19, I was living in that van. When I went to the XFL in Seattle, I was living in that van. And to me, I
That's
never
awesome.
saw it as like, oh, it was a great story. It was more like, this is my my safe space.
Yeah.
I never saw anything out of it. I mean, I was like, I just couldn't figure out if I was doing home improvement or maintenance on the car because I was living in it and
Yeah.
working on it at the same time.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's a wonderful car. I mean, everyone loves it. I just love seeing everyone happy and tell me their stories at the gas stations. But that's the bus in
Right.
itself. She's wonderful. Drive it every other day. So that's my girl.
That's incredible. What were like when you were living in it full time, what were some of your teammates' reaction to it?
Believe it or not, everyone was very like surprised because I don't know if there's a misconception of people in the van life community
Yeah.
where you see it and you're like, oh, someone has to live in there. Or for
Right.
me, like I made sure my thing was cherried out, clean all the time. Nobody really knew I was in the van all the time, unless you see
Yeah.
like steam coming out. I was always brewing coffee for people in the morning outside
Uh-huh.
the gym. But everyone, was really receptive about it. They was always wanted rides in it. The linemen always want rides for some reason. Um,
Typical. Yeah.
Typical, but they're the funnest people on the team, and
Yeah.
a lot of weight capacity, and then that poor little engine is just trying its best to move everybody around. But everyone
Yeah.
was very receptive. So that's the thing is like in the beginning I was thinking to myself, hey, people might not like this, or I'm just playing the typical kicker perception. But
Yeah.
no, everyone's been really receptive, and they still love hearing about it and seeing it.
Yeah, the wacky kicker living in his van. It's a trope that
Yeah.
plays itself. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like, here we go. I'm gonna hear the stories, but I'm like, if I haven't brought
Yeah.
that attention to myself throughout these years, the van will do it.
Yeah. 100%. So as you grew in the arena game, what were some of like the most unique challenges that you faced as a kicker in arena football that people on the outside may not necessarily realize?
I would say moving throughout these leagues from the AFL to IFL to what was then the CIF, and in one league in the Louisiana, the PIFL, the ball
Mm,
material always changed. So that's the thing, was that what people think that is the venue or maybe the style of play. Kicking is kicking in every of these level of these arena.
yeah.
It still presents the same thing. What's the challenge is one is the material of the football, the brand that's made out of. It's always changing, and sometimes even if there's an event night, if you're not aware that that team you're going to play is having a breast cancer awareness night or a military night, the ball will change. And if it's
Mm,
because of more of a presentation, a promotional event, that ball
right.
is not the same one you've been using all year long. So that's one. And then the second is the rule changes throughout these years. That's another one. That's been the most interesting part of learning this game. But with study and preparation, when you're moving throughout these leagues and learning the rules, you get a chance to
Mm,
really prepare in the off season if that's how creative you are, and you become successful that way. And if there is somebody in that league or in that situation that you've been in or you haven't been in, it's always great to ask them. And that's the thing in this professional life. I think most people think that we don't talk with one another, but it's always good to share information so that we're all in the
yeah.
same boat and put on a good show. Because at the end of the day, arena football is a show, and it's. I tell the young guys, if you have a gimmick, figure it out. It's like it's like being in the
Play it up.
WWE. You don't
Yeah.
break kayfabe, but at the same time, you build a gimmick so that everyone can attach themselves to you, and that's how you build your brand. I've had a few gimmicks throughout the years, some that I do like, some that I'm like, okay. So and then yeah,
How many of those gimmicks were kind of put on you from outside parties when you were like, "Oh, I don't know about all this. Let's chill."
a good one. Oh, and I'm always embarrassed to talk about this one, but it started in Wichita, Kansas, with a Wild, the sombrero. My mom's from Mexico, my dad's from El Salvador, and I was born here. And yeah, I speak Spanish. And yes, my birthday is on Cinco de Mayo, the only day I'm probably a full Mexican.
Of
But
course. Yeah.
I remember they're like, you should come out a sombrero for the introductions. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Well, I
Yeah,
wasn't
I don't
really
know about
given
all
that
that.
choice. It was just put in my locker, and I came out, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be embarrassing. And the moment I come out, at the intros, the crowd erupted. I'm like, is this really happening? And then they told me
It's
they told me throw into the stands, and I'm like, all right, there it goes.
all
And
right,
the next
yeah.
week, next home game, there was another sombrero, so it stuck. Um,
Yeah.
Not my favorite, but people still love it, and people still wanted me to bring it back in San Diego. And I'm like, all right, as long as it doesn't deter me off my game. So
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's incredible. So in the indoor game,
mhm.
having a weapon at kicker can be an absolute game changer given the different ways that they can be utilized. And I want to talk through a couple different ask a kicker questions and starting with drop kicks. So this is something that it's starting to catch on a little bit more in indoor and arena football. You see players like yourself, Connor Mangan, Henry Now, and I'm sure there are others that are starting to do it a little bit more often. What are your thoughts on the drop kick? And is it something you always want to be doing, or is it something where you got to pick your spots with it?
I believe now having a season under my belt with it, you got to pick your spots. It is not something that is sustainable long term.
Right.
I feel that when I first did it in Frisco, one, we had never practiced it. It literally happened in the game, and my coach was like, "Hey, do you want a drop kick?" I'm like, we've never practiced it. And they threw me out there. So then I'm having to tell everybody, we need an extra guy, take the holder out. It's like a mini punt.
Right.
And it happened. So I'm like, okay, that was cute. Then they said, do it again, do it again. And I'm like, I'm getting away with this. This is interesting. But then you go to a different
Yeah.
venue, and now the surface has changed. The ball is going to drop differently. And that's what people don't understand, that you can still drop
Okay.
the same way, but the way that ball is going to bounce off that floor between the floor that the Rattlers have to what the Duke City team had to what San Antonio has is not going to
Yeah.
feel the same. And that's when I started seeing that, I was like, okay, coach, if I'm not feeling it at warmups, let's not try to chase points. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Let's go get the sure points. And when it's needed, if it's needed, we should do it. I just don't think it's something that needs to be sustainable. But I think that with this new dynamic of the game, it's going to bring that much more of the skill set for the kickers and be more of a weapon because I wasn't the first one to do it. To me, the shout out goes out to Henry Nell. He was doing
Yeah.
it for a long time and successfully. And then I started seeing, I was always drop kicking with my coaches just for fun.
Yeah.
Now, I never thought in my career that I'd be attempting drop kicks on a consistent basis. But as the time went on, I started telling guys, you need to be very specific on when to use this because you don't want to be in the beginning of the game chasing points when you're not successful.
Right.
And then the rules are changing. So another guy that was doing it that was very successful was Axel Perez from Northern Arizona, and having great games, and then sometimes being a little bit off. And again, I was telling him before games against us, hey, this feeling may look nice, but that ball doesn't want to drop correctly. He's not going to bounce
Right.
off.
Yeah.
And so, it's fun. It's creative. I think it's going to bring a lot more of a weapon. And I think coaches are starting to see that like the more the skill set, the better, because I think a specialist in arena football is a lot more of a weapon to the outdoor game because of the onside kicks, the deuces,
Oh yeah.
drop kicks, the field goals, and the rouge. There's so many things that they need to continue to grow as an arena kicker to become that weapon. And it's going to be a wonderful thing to see a lot of these guys keep doing it. I've been asked a lot of questions like, "How are you holding the ball?" I'm like, "I hold the ball this way," or some guys hold the ball this way.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you really want to talk to somebody, talk to a guy like a Dropkick Mangan or like a Henry Nell, guys who are rugby
Yeah.
players that are
Yeah.
successful at
Yeah.
it. But then they're like, well, you have already 10 plus drop kicks. I'm like, it is what it is. My uncle was a goalie in the 70s, and they used to drop kick soccer balls from goalies. So
Uh-huh.
he's the one that taught me how to do that. But
Yeah.
again, like going back to, I think it's something you need to pick and choose your battles so that you're not chasing in the game.
Yeah, because some like especially that Frisco game, you were making it look very easy. And I caught myself saying a couple times out loud, why don't they just do this all the time? But hearing that explanation of like the surface, the ball, the
Yeah,
this, it's like there's a lot of different factors that if you're not really thinking about it or you're not in it,
yeah.
it makes sense why, hey, let's just do a traditional extra point this time.
Because you have to at that game. I will always take it to my grave, telling people it was more luck than anything. Because then when I did the
Wow.
same thing in San Antonio, it was great, but people don't know how many snappers I was having to teach snappers from a
Yeah.
lower snap to now a direct snap from further back at a higher. It changes
Right.
everything. If you literally go into that conversion and suddenly you're lined up as an extra point, your coach is probably going to say, let's do drop kick. You now change the mentality that the snapper is going to make that adjustment to snap the ball to you. And it showed. I've seen a lot of guys, do that. So I think it goes back to the education of the game. I think that now you're going to see a lot of more of this. I think people are going to be more aware of how to train for this.
Right.
The IFL itself needs to learn to change the rules on that, because I started seeing a lot of my fellow drop kickers not wanting to do it anymore, because if they missed it, now it was counting towards the extra point statistic. So a
Oh,
1 point
wow.
and a 2 point, from place kicking, so we're place kickers, to drop kicking is a two different kicks.
Yeah, seriously, that's two different metrics.
So we were talking throughout the season, and I guess they couldn't figure it out. Hopefully they can, because if they
Yeah.
want to see the dynamic of the game change and see a lot more specialists, they need to do that so that a lot of these younger guys who are going to be looked at from higher leagues, they don't want their statistics being determined so much because of that.
Right. Yeah, because that's very different if someone's like 97% from extra points
Oh
and
yeah.
it's all standard, but
Mhm.
someone else is like 80%, but all of his misses were only drop kicks. Like that's
Exactly.
very, very different.
Yeah.
Dang.
So hopefully they can change that, because
Yeah.
for some odd reason there's still a punting category in the indoor football league statistics. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. So
Yeah. I every single time I go to the stats, I'm like, why is this here? Like
Yeah.
what I don't know how they classify that. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. But you mentioned other aspects of the King of game. You mentioned onside kicks. You had some crazy onside kicks this past season that really put Duke City in some great position to win some games. How many different styles of onside kicks do you have in your bag?
From my rookie year, I had one or two.
Hmm.
To now at entering my year 14th, I have about 12 different styles and 12
Oh
different
my,
tricks. Now, with every team presents itself a new opportunity to be more creative, staying within the rules.
yeah.
Some teams are more one dimensional than others. I mean, as many kicks, onside kicks that I had when I was with the Rattlers, they only want to do one onside kick, and that is the middle dribble.
Hmm.
Whereas when in Duke City, it was something interesting this last year because statistically we were over 60% success rate on onside kicks, which I will never probably see again,
Yeah, that's
ever.
insane.
And it's a matter of not just the kicker being creative and knowing that he has control of the ball, but it's showing your team, them buying into it,
Right.
knowing that he's going to do his job. We just got to do our job and let's go after this. And then film study. I think it's very interesting to really analyze these teams going into each game and understanding you're not just watching the last game, you're watching 3 to 4 games or
Yeah.
possibly a year before, see what is different based on the kicker. So having so many onside kicks, especially this year, it's just having fun and knowing the situation because you never do
Yep.
the same onside kick twice. It's the
Yeah.
rule that I tell guys never do the same one twice because these guys are professionals. They're getting paid too. They're not
Yep.
going to make the same mistake twice. So having the right tools, the different kickoff tees, playing within the rules. I mean, there's so many things to be creative about. And also, when I was younger, I saw the great Mark Lewis. To me, Mark Lewis is the Adam Vinatieri of arena football when it comes to kicker.
Uh-huh.
He is a record I'm trying to chase at 16 years, but that guy was probably over 80% success rate on onside kicks. And it is
Wild.
insane. And watching him, I tell kids, look, it's nice to watch me do onside kicks. Watch Mark Lewis.
Yeah.
He's probably still somewhere in Florida, still kicking. I know he is. Um,
Yeah.
so he's the guy to watch. But all these onside kicks, the more kicks you have in the tool bag, the more and more creativity, the better. Because there's times where, I was hiding behind the line, and I'm like, hey guys, there's certain words, there's certain keywords, and they see something. I also give my team an opportunity. If my team is smart and they've done the film study, and I'm behind them, they're like, hey, we see so and so here. Let's do this one, and I'll check to that, and we do it.
Yeah.
So
Man,
now that
you're
people
calling
watch it,
audibles on the kickoff?
say again.
You're calling audibles on the kickoff?
Oh
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I have to say it. I'm calling audibles. I mean, the visor isn't
Wow.
so much for style. The visor's for that they don't see my eyes where I'm going with the ball. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, that's something that I mean we can talk about in a little bit, but everyone thinks
Yeah.
it's more of a style. It's I've been doing it since I was in high school, but arena football having tinted visors is
Yeah.
key when you're trying to hide because I tell my team on a return, watch the kicker's eyes. He'll tell you everything on an onside kick.
Yeah.
So
Wow. I'm learning a lot today. Like I was not expecting to learn this much. And when you said 12, I was expecting maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 at the most, but 12,
oh yeah.
that's crazy. That is
And
insane.
and I'm still learning. I'm still learning from younger
Yeah.
because you never know what they're gonna come with. So
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. So last ask a kicker question is about the deuce. You were very hot with the deuce several times throughout the season, especially that last game where I think you had what six? I
six,
want to say
yeah.
6 or 7, something
Six.
like that. Yeah. So like, how do you determine when to go for it or when to keep the ball in play? Because one of the things that I absolutely love about the IFL rules is that you
Mhm.
can go for the deuce, but if you miss, the ball's at midfield. So
Right.
I love that calculated risk where, like in the AFL, if it bounces off the net, all right, they just catch it and return it. It's not a big deal. Like there's no real risk reward aspect for going for the deuce. So do you like always have the green light for it or is it situational?
I would say that the deuce rule, it is a phenomenal rule. I think it's great for the young guys and for guys showing off their legs. But that being said, if a kicker's given the green light, and I know there was only really 3 of us in the league with Gibber Rui, now retired and great friend and great kicker, TC Stevens, and
Yeah.
myself. These are guys that we have the ability to do it. And I think a lot of these kickers going to arena, it's an understanding of how you have to have your swing thought and the development of your form in arena. The way I kick outside is not necessarily the way I kick inside. Again, it goes back to the material of the ball. There is no sweet spot.
Yeah.
And depending on which team you're on, the venue's going to present a difficulty in trying to attempt this. What people don't know is that for those who don't always have the green light, now it becomes the kicker is an extension of the defense. So by making the deuce, they get the ball at the 5, you're awarded 2 points. And if
Yep.
you have a poor secondary, these teams know, let them attempt the deuce. We'll go for deep on the route or like on the offense and score. Whereas the defense is so good, they'd rather have the short field. And if you miss it, now they get the ball at the 25. They love the short field because there's some offenses that are only good from the longer distances. So those are things that I've learned growing in this game with this rule. And I always tell the defense, you guys give me, or the defensive coordinator will kind of tell me like, what are the strong suits this year? What are they good at? What are they going to be able to risk to be able to do that? And also having that green light determines on how good the recoverage team is on your kickoff team. If you're having to what we had in Duke City, almost every kickoff, I had new personnel. With every new personnel, you see what is the weak links, what are the strengths, what are the guys who are going to be able to go down their lanes based on if we're not going for a deuce, we're now pinning in these corners, what guys can and cannot do it. And based on that, it's nothing disregarding of their skill set. It's unfortunately, it's just the way it is. And special teams is huge. And people don't understand that. We score so much. If I knew I was going to score 25 points in that last game, I would have bet on the game or something. Geez, I couldn't. That was not what I was expecting.
Right.
And that said, is like that game, I made 6, but there was 2 of them that were not. We put them in play, and we noticed that they were just taking the ball back with the good coverage and good return. So I'm like, you know what, coach? I think we should just keep on attempting to do. I'm feeling this right now.
Just keep going.
Like, all right. But that being said, too, along with being the deuce or attempting that, I think you have to know your limitation as a kicker. And that being said, you always listen to the coach. To me, I was raised in a military background, and my dad was always like, you have your leaders and what they're going to have to do and what you have to listen to. So I always listen to what the coach wants to do. And then after that, we make adjustments here and there, but you can't go against the coach. And I see guys trying to tempo deuce and they'll come up short and the return is set up perfectly and the kicking team is not prepared for that. They were probably just on there to be like, well, we're not going to really run down. So
yeah, he's gonna either blast it through the end zone or make the deuce. So that makes sense. Huh, man, you are putting me onto some game right now. You're blowing my mind on with some things here.
I mean, it's interesting because it's great that your platform allows everyone to kind of really start to see the intricacies of this game. And then, people don't. I still realize that people don't know the rules too well. People think that, all right, even some players, I'm like, I tell the guys, when we attempt this deuce, no matter what you do, run all the way down to the wall. Because what if it hits the goalpost? It's a live ball. We scored 2 years ago on that. And I tell guys, you never know what's going to happen. As a kicker, I always tell them, don't go for a deuce and thinking like, I'm going to make this. No. Always pick something in the background, something small behind the goalpost. Aim for that. Aim small, miss small. Get within the goalpost. If you make it great, if it bounces off, make sure your team is prepared.
Yeah, aim for the guy wearing the red hat right in the middle of the of the goalpost. Aim for him.
Oh yeah, something like that.
So you mentioned like just a couple minutes ago about like you're feeling it, you're in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the zone, like how, like what do you mean? Like how do you know you're feeling it? And is it something where you got to like reset and reground yourself after every kick, or when you're like, all right, I've made 3 deuces, let's keep it going, you just ride the hot hand? Like, what does that look like from a mental perspective?
From a mental perspective, even from your warm-ups before the game to the warm-ups you have pre-game with the team, you can have days where you're going into your warm-ups and you're feeling great. Now you're going with the operation, and suddenly things are falling apart.
Hmm.
And what I learned about arena football compared to what I've experienced in college and in the XFL is that you really do, as a kicker, as in arena football, have to be like a goldfish mindset, the 10-second memory.
Yeah.
Or if you ever watch 51st Dates, 10-second Tom, things of
Yeah.
that sort. So because the game changes so much and it's so fast that you don't have time to process when you make a kick, when you miss a kick, and things of that sort. And that goes not just for the kickers, but for everybody in the game, because you could be down 2, 3 scores and suddenly you're right back in it, no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And I've been in many situations of that sort. So when you're saying you're writing the hot hand, I think it's mostly resetting every time you make or miss a kick. You have to reset
Hmm.
and start thinking about staying within your swing thought. And I like using golfers, and like anything that has to do with golfing or anything with the repetition, like bowling, pitching, batting, same swing thoughts, same pitch thoughts, and things of that sort. And they stay within that no matter what. And that's the best way to handle arena football, because of the fact that your snapper and your holder are guys who have never done this before. Usually
Yeah.
have never done this. So you're teaching them for the first time. And the worst thing you can do as a kicker, we all learned this, especially when I was young, in the outdoor game, you can get mad all you want. But in arena, if you miss it or you know something went wrong, be like, hey, don't worry, buddy. We'll get it next time. Because the moment you tell the holder or snapper they messed up, they already don't want
Right.
to do it. They're like, oh
Yeah.
boy, you know what I mean? But they're like, I'm getting
Yeah.
good positive feedback from this individual. That's how
Yeah.
you handle it. And there might be some incentives with that. And like, hey, buddy, great job tonight. Buy some Chick-fil-A or something like that, that sort. So there's something like that. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. I make sure I tell the young guys, take care of your unit, if because you don't know when you'll need them again. So
Yeah, it takes the whole operation from snap to hold the kick. Every
absolutely.
single person has to play their part just for a single kick to go through like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you touched on it a little bit earlier. I wanted to talk about the on-field look with the whole visor aesthetic. You look like a player you would create on Madden or NCAA at times. And you just don't see kickers with visors very often, like you mentioned. So you kind of mentioned like the strategic element of it, but like how and when did the visor come into play? And is there a bit of a cool factor with it too? Like a little bit?
I would say the visor came in my sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
The same face mask I use is the same face mask I had to cut 20 lawns to buy on a catalog back in 2003. Um, and I still wear it. It's the same face mask I wear. And the visor, I realized that when you're a sophomore in varsity, you're very scared. I was only one of 3 guys. And when you
Yeah.
messed up, I love my head coach and God bless him. Uh, he would get in your face and there'd be like a lot of spitting. So the visor presented at that time a barrier.
It was out of necessity.
Yeah. So, and then as time went on, like obviously in high school and also in college, you can't wear tinted visors, but I always wore it because I love to tackle in high school. I love to tackle in college. And since that face mask is very kind of wide, you don't
Yeah.
run that danger of someone, hitting you in there. And it happens. I mean, it happened my rookie year.
Hmm.
I got rid of it one game. I gave it to some player. I don't remember his name because I believed I was not going to make a tackle. That didn't happen. I went for a tackle, and instead of the guy stiff arming me, he poked my eye and my left eye.
Ah.
They had to put my eye back a little bit, so it was kind of looking toward my nose, and then they
Oh,
popped it
geez.
back. And
So you're like,
never
yeah, I need that visor back right
need
now.
that visor back. And then so the lighting in arena football changes dramatically. So
Yeah.
the tinted visor makes everything a lot more consistent. There was the Omaha Beef used to play in an arena back in 2011 that had a strobe light that came off a projector for the kickers back then. So wearing a tinted visor, the strobe light never affected you. So there's a lot of these little
Huh.
factors, and obviously, like I said, the onside kicks. Now for the cool factor, I don't think the visor was something for me that was cool. I think it used it for my benefit. Everything
Yeah.
else, like what I use on my wrist, that was from my hero Nick Pertwee, one of the great arena kickers from the Sabercats.
Yeah.
I thought he was cool for doing that.
Yeah.
Things of that sort. Yeah, there's little things here and there, but I think it's cool to like. There's kids that are like, "Oh, I think that's pretty cool." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. I actually use it for a reason." I mean, now everybody knows. I mean, some people who have known me, they're like, I seen guys are like, "I can see your eyes." I'm like, "Gotta get a new visor. They can see my eyes."
Gotta go darker. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So in 2025, you're heading back to San Diego. Like you said, you played in San Diego a little bit in 19. What was the buildup like to signing in San Diego, and what was like the major selling point where I was like, all right, this is the place for me. Let's make it happen.
Well, this offseason was filled with a lot of confusion and a lot of not knowing what was going to happen because I was ready to go back to Duke City. I love Duke City. I love the uniform. I love the ownership there. They treated me so well, and the fans were great. So once the rumors started, I was trying to figure out and trying to stay ahead. And I tell a lot of the young guys, you have to stay ahead of the signings and what's going on in the news because you do not want to be stuck in this limbo of not being signed and the season coming up. You don't want to be stuck there. It's not good for your mental state. It's not good for your preparation for the arena game. I believe in 3 to 5 months as a kicker, 3 to 5 months to really prepare yourself for an arena game to get your leg in shape because it's not like the outdoor game. You're kicking 10 to 20 times more than you do in the outdoor game per season.
Yeah.
So that being said, once I found out Duke City was going into dormancy and other teams, it was at 35, I did not expect to be hoarded the way I was. So the moment Duke City went dormant at 12:01 a.m. following day, every team had called me except my former team of the Rattlers and Green Bay, where my wife's from. Which Green Bay would be nice, but
from
the wife's perspective. But that being said, everyone was great to talk to, and I was thinking, I can't believe that this is happening at 35.
Yeah,
it didn't happen a few years back. So, I was coming down to at least 3 teams, and I have known San Diego's front office. They have treated me well when I was there. They treated me well even when I come back and play against them. They're like, "You should be on this team." I'm like, "Hey, it is what it is. It happens." They attempted to trade for me twice throughout the seasons.
Really?
And I know a lot of people there. That being said, I think what was the selling point was, when I tell these young guys, understand your living situations there, training, what's it going to be like day to day, because that's very important in arena leagues. I mean, there's all these horror stories that we hear, but the uniforms are nice.
That's true. That's cool too.
And what's funny is that in 2020, the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, San Diego rebranded. We used to be the color blue.
Yeah.
We rebranded, and the 3 models, I was one of the 3 models wearing the all black. And I never got a chance to wear it because a week later I was picked up by the Seattle Dragons. And so I never saw it. So I'm like, talking with my wife and everything, it's more of like, what do you think? She's like, well, you're going to be back in the California area. And I'm like, yeah, I get to see friends and family can see me play again because San Jose is also another opportunity for me in my hometown. But she said, I like the uniforms. I'm like, let's do that. So
something as easy as that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, look good, feel good, play good, as they say.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that we started talking about recently that kind of spurred the conversation to join the show was about the LaunchPad Kickoff Tee and the event that's coming up in January. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got involved with that.
So the showcase that we have, the thing is, my goal for after my career is over is that there's all these combines, combines for the kickers, and unfortunately we are only left for those opportunities that we didn't get picked up. Now, a lot of these combines I feel have perhaps lost their way a little bit, and I know people have to make money here and there, but the genuine side of giving people an opportunity, I think has lost its way. So what I wanted to do in arena games, throughout my career, when I was younger, having to work so much, gather up this money just to go across country for a tryout, staying
Yeah.
somewhere, perhaps trying to figure out what's going to happen that day, waiting 8 hours. And then you get worked out for them to tell you, we're looking for a kicker. And then after your workout, we already have a kicker. So what I want to do all these things is, instead of arena teams having to just call a specialist and be like, hey, who has never played arena football, not prepared and not educated, you're set up to fail. For a long time, the average lifetime span for a kicker in arena was 3 games. It bumped up to 4 because guys are either getting better educated, perhaps they're seeing arena football kicking more often now.
Right.
And I think that when it comes down to it, this showcase, along with the LaunchPad Kickoff Tee, being one of the main people using it, I think this tee has been the most beneficial thing when it comes to deuces. I mean, there's a lot of tips and tricks to the trade that make the ball easier to navigate in arena. But that being said, if we are able to educate these young guys, not only in how to play the game, but understand that what you're getting yourself into in the world of arena football / indoor, you have that choice to make whether you really want to attack this or you don't. I always tell guys, this is not just something that you just jump into. A lot of us did, and we didn't learn, we didn't know or didn't understand, and you trial and error. So I think that with the education, and I think that with hearing stories from the legends, it's not just a one-day event. It's a 3-day event where first night's going to be about getting together, talking stories, hearing from legends of the game and stories. Could be funny, could be positive, could be negative, but at least these guys understand what they're getting themselves into. To the next day, being in the gym atmosphere, sharing tips of how to, strength training and what to do, because the kickers are getting more built. I hate to say it. Some of these guys, they look like linebackers now. I mean,
there's some big ones out there. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't help that I was bench pressing more than most of my certain positions of my team. And I was like, this is getting interesting, guys. This is not good. But that being said, to be able to understand for the younger guys, and as you keep getting older, there are different things that you need to do because your body's changing. It really is. I mean, from 25-year-old to a 35-year-old, I mean, you look great at 25, but at 35, if you haven't sustained it throughout these years, you're not really doing yourself, a satisfaction to doing well in this game. So with this combine, we're given this opportunity for guys to come in. Last year was a great opportunity. I think last year I kind of wanted to see how things were going, and it was really, really fun because a lot of guys learned so much, and we were able to at least tell each other, hey, I've been using this tee this way or this way. And then, LaunchPad was like surprised that they were just thinking one-dimensionally when it comes to how the tee's used. But seeing how in arena kickers, we have to adapt because of the venues, the style of the game.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to watch. So this is something that I want to keep on going. I haven't put my name on it because I'm still playing. I just want to be a person to advocate and be an ambassador for this because I know where I am and my later part of my career. I want these young guys to be much more prepared than I was, because it's only going to make the game that much better, more successful, and the longevity of the kickers in this league and the respect factor. There's been many NFL kickers that people don't talk about that played in arena football that people forgot about. So I still think that a lot of guys still need to learn that there is a transition between the outdoor game and the indoor game. You can't get stuck in one or the other. The moment you can combine them and understand that my swing thought for the outdoor game and indoor game is different, you're just a weapon.
Yeah, learning the tips and tricks of the trade is huge. Like I know, like tight end university, they the NFL tight ends and get together. So it's kind of like that in that same vein where it's like regardless of I play for San Diego, I play for Arizona, you're sharing the tips and tricks to make the profession, to make the position a lot better.
And just the formation, because I think now in time as this grows, it allows the teams to not just you can send representatives or you can send film out, so that now there's a place where this is being specialized, so that if this team is looking for this guy, what is his strengths? If there's many teams that, and I won't mention these teams, but there's certain teams that are like, I need a deuce guy, or I need just an extra point guy, or I need a guy that can get onside kicks, and now you'll be able to have a platform where you can select these kind of guys.
Yeah.
And that being said, I think it's a wonderful. I know there's rivalries, and we all have them, but it's a wonderful thing to know that when there is a place where you can all come in a central location, and maybe in time we can move it, but you can share ideas, share thoughts, and for
Yeah.
a few days come together because we're all in the same boat. Now, when it's come to game day, it's a whole different game. Now you're competing, but it's like kickers, we need to be very unified and understand that in arena
Yeah.
football, if we don't help each other out, we're not doing a good service to the younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an awesome initiative to be getting behind, and looking forward to seeing how it grows. So we'll link all the socials and all the information for it, and the website and everything. But where can people follow along to learn more about this event that's happening?
Right now, I mean, I know LaunchPad's been presenting it there, but I think we're going to have to revamp some things because
Okay.
right now they will be the ones mostly posting about this, and a lot of us will be reposting. So once things get a
Okay.
little bit more solidified, because it's coming up on the January 24th through the 26th,
Yes.
and it's a good time in Arizona because the weather's still pretty good here. At the same
Yeah.
time, it's
Yeah.
not too late and it's not too early from training camp. So if there are guys who are pros, the pros will be able to do a showcase and and the young guys who are free agents can watch the pros and see what they're doing. And that way that they can finish what they're doing, they can be gone and now get
Right.
ready for the last, push for training camp. So once things get settled out, we'll be more on Instagram and Facebook. I know
Okay.
Launchpad will be mostly in charge of that, and I'll be able to help out. I know I'm one of the coaches or attendees that will be there because I
Yeah.
love I love showing the young guys the tips and tricks that made me successful because that is what the legends before did for me, whether they realize it or not. So I just want to be able to pass this on, and hopefully they can do the same thing.
That's great. Yeah, and we'll post some stuff on socials heading up to the event itself, leading up to it. I think it's a great initiative. Like I said, I'm super excited to see it continue to grow. This was fantastic. I really, really appreciate you dropping all the knowledge on us, and we'll have to do this again, and maybe a little bit closer to the season. But I really appreciate you joining the show. Tell the people where they can follow you on the different socials.
I'm mostly active on Instagram. My Facebook's
Okay.
mostly more for my family, but Instagram is a Lacayo _89 is where I built my career, and I'm pretty approachable. A lot of kids when they have questions, or fellow kickers at the same level. If they ever have
Right.
questions, I'm always there to answer anything for them. I'm just trying to be more of the old school gentleman of
Yeah.
the game, so as much as I can. So sorry if
Yeah.
I'm not the most talkative during the season. It's just the dog in me still playing. So
Yeah, 100%. Well, socials will be linked in the episode description wherever you're watching or listening to this. So, again, Ernesto, we really appreciate the time, and looking forward to 2025, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
well, thank you and great platform, and keep doing what you're doing, man. I love it.
Absolutely, will do. Big thanks again to Ernesto Lacayo for joining the show this week and talking shop and just spewing all sorts of knowledge of the kicking game. No, learning that he had 12 different onside kicks in his bag was insane to me. Like, if you go back and watch it, you could see I'm just floored when he says that. Just so much I learned about the intricacies of drop kick, the deuce attempts, and like all the strategy that goes into it just makes the indoor game so much more compelling and so much more interesting. So again, go give Ernesto a follow on Instagram. The social link is in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this. And make sure you check out the LaunchPad Kickoff Tee page as well and learn a little bit more about that event that's going on in January. It's going to be a nice little showcase for arena and indoor specialists. So, yeah, big thanks again to Ernesto. So we're going to start with the IFL today, and not a lot of movement over the past week or so, but there are some notable things that I wanted to make sure we touched on. So starting with Fisher's Freight, they're putting together quite a squad with some really good IFL experience and arena experience. Over the past week, they've signed a couple guys that's jumped off the page for me. And that's defensive back Greg Thomas, who spent some time with Duke City last year, and wide receiver Isaiah Cox, who spent some time in San Diego last year. So both of those players were really, really good in their roles on each of their prior teams. Isaiah Cox was a very good weapon for Nate Davis out in San Diego, and I'm really interested to see how this team comes together. And even though they are an expansion team, they're already putting together a ton of experience at all levels. I think at quarterback, they might sign somebody with a little bit more experience to compete with Jai Wright and help push him along. But athletically, he showed a lot of flashes of potential last year with Sioux Falls. So I think offensively, it's going to take a little bit of time to get things going. But defensively, I really like what they're doing. They've signed a couple guys from the Duke City team last year that Duke City had a pretty good defense. Their offense just didn't really provide for them at times when they needed them to, but the defense kept them in games more. It kept them in more games than the offense deserved to be in, quite frankly. So the fact that they are transitioning some of those Duke City defenders to this Fisher Freight defense, and you put Dixie Wooten in charge of the offense, this is going to be a very interesting team to watch all season long. And then moving over to the Massachusetts Pirates, they continue to build out their secondary. So a lot of times you'll see teams build out a specific position group and kind of like make that their foundation. That's what the Pirates are doing with their secondary. This was by far their strongest group on defense down the stretch last year. Their secondary was physical against opposing wide receiver groups in the playoffs. They were just dominating the opposition in the Eastern Conference. And I know things didn't go so well in the championship game, but they were a really physical group and looked really, really good collectively as a whole. And they're bringing back a lot of the same names from that group and adding to it. And so some of the names that they already signed this past week are Cyrus Fagan, who was with the team last year, and then Leon O'Neal, who spent some time in the CFL last year and then is coming back. So he played for the Pirates a few years back, and he got reinstated to the IFL, and he is back with the Pirates for this upcoming season. So that defensive backfield that they have in Massachusetts is going to be physical. It's not going to be fun playing against Massachusetts, especially if you're a wide receiver. But if I'm interested to see what type of moves they make on offense. They had a lot of veteran experience on offense last year, and with the veteran rules the way that they are in the IFL, they kind of have a cap on the amount of veterans they can bring back. So a lot of the players that they had last year might be aging into that veteran status if they weren't already. So they might have to make some decisions on roster personnel and maybe take some chances on some position groups and get some rookies in the mix. But where do you do that, right? They've had Alejandro Benefield at quarterback for a long time. They've had a really good wide receiver group for a couple years now. Jimmy Robinson has been unbelievable at running back. So it's going to be interesting to see their approach on offense. But defensively, that secondary is going to keep them in a lot of games. And then the last team I wanted to touch on the IFL was the Tulsa Oilers. So they're starting to piece together their offense. They lost Lex Rosario and Andre Sale to the Orlando Predators of the AF1. So their wide receiver one and their QB one to end the season last year are both gone. So there's some holes to fill in offense, and they started to fill some of those. Wide receiver Joshua Crockett, he re-signed from last year. He's a big target, 6'4". He was able to make some really, really great athletic plays. And I think I want to say he was on the kick return a handful of times and ran one back. So he's a big guy that is quite nimble as well. So interested to see if he can put together a full healthy season and what that will look like for this Tulsa Oilers offense that is going to be completely revamped with Andre Coles calling the shots. And they also signed quarterback Hassan Rogers, who played for Duke City a little bit last year. I was big on Hassan Rogers last season with Duke City. He provided a jolt. He provided a little bit of boost to an offense that was really lacking any sort of direction. Beginning of the year, they had some quarterback issues with just a ton of interceptions. As they kind of transitioned to different quarterbacks, they couldn't really find a fit. Joe Mancuso was a great fit, but unfortunately got hurt. So they eventually turned to Hassan Rogers, and he is a true dual threat. And whenever he tucked the ball and ran last year, he was shot out of a cannon. Like, he was so quick, so nimble, and he put them in a position to win some games. But due to some of the inconsistencies across the entire team, they just weren't able to finish on some of those things. So I think Hassan Rogers is a good start for Tulsa to build around. We'll see if they add any quarterbacks with any more veteran experience down the line. But I'm interested to see how Hassan Rogers will fit in with this Andre Cole's offense. So shifting over to the AF1, have a couple teams to touch on, and we'll start with the Albany Firebirds. They've done it all offseason. They're running it back with a lot of the same group while adding some pieces from other teams in the league. And specifically, they re-signed a couple of wide receivers over the past week, wide receiver Markel Wade and wide receiver Darian Townsend. So they've got Isaiah Scott, they've got Markel Wade, they've got Darian Townsend. So that's a really solid group of 3 wide receivers. There is a notable wide receiver from last year that has not been re-signed yet, Darius Prince, but we'll see what happens with that. But if these are the 3 that you're rolling with primarily heading into next season, I think you got to be happy with that. Whether or not Darius Prince comes back, obviously Prince will be a nice boost for the team, for the fan base. But if those are your 3 at wide receiver, that's pretty good, and I'd be pretty happy with that if I'm an Albany Firebird fan. And then Orlando also brought back a couple pieces from their offense. So All-AFL first team wide receiver Clarence Williams was brought back, and then one of the best kickers in the arena game, Dylan Barnes, was also brought back. So I was a big fan of Dylan Barnes. Go Knights, charge on, and what he was able to do and really swing a lot of momentum for the Predators. He hit on the deuce a ton last season. And I think he was a lot better than some people would realize. So the fact that he's back in Orlando is a good sign for the Predators offense. They've got Andre Sale, they've got Lex Rosario, they've got Clarence Williams, they've got DJ Harvey at wide receiver. This offense is starting to look really, really, really good on paper. We'll see if that translates to the field. And then speaking of that All-AFL team that I mentioned, that was never really officially released, but I did post a blog that I guess leaked the All-AFL first team, second team, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, MVP, coach of the year, all that stuff. So again, go to the website offthewallfb.com and check out that blog. You can also go to our Twitter/X page and check it out there. Have a whole bunch of commentary on it, and caused a little bit of a ruckus in the arena football world when I posted that. But yeah, go check that out and let me know your thoughts. Last thing I want to touch on is I was hopeful that we would hear some news on some additional expansion teams that are supposedly coming down the pike, but the timelines just seem to be getting delayed further and further. We were told in a press release last month that, quote, "We will release our schedule for 2025 no later than the second week of November." It's currently the second week of November. Not sure if that's happening. Not sure. They haven't added all the teams. I know that for a fact. There are more teams coming, and the fact that they're not announced yet means I don't think we're getting that schedule the second week of November. According to John Chaney, owner of the Orlando Predators, Orlando's still figuring out dates for their home games at the Kia Center in downtown Orlando. So it's tricky for them because they share a home with the Orlando Magic and the Orlando Solar Bears, who are a minor league hockey team. So dates can be tricky to work around, especially when you consider that the Orlando Magic are probably going to have a playoff run this year, which will extend their season into the summertime, which is like the arena football season. So it's going to be very tricky for them. So the fact that they don't have dates locked in tells me that we're not getting that scheduled this week. And I don't know when we would be getting it if it's not coming this week. Again, there will be more teams added, and there will be some movement with teams. I think we're going to hear some news about some teams potentially not playing in 2025 and maybe getting pushed to 2026. That may surprise some people, but it's just a matter of when this gets announced from the league. And I'm not sure what the holdup is. I'm not sure what the deal is, but eventually we'll hear this at some point. I don't know. We'll see. But speaking of John Chaney, on this week's edition of the Orlando Predators Coaches Show, it's called The Breakdown Live, he dropped some news that I don't think he was supposed to drop. At the 20-minute mark of the show, you can go to their Facebook page and watch the show. At literally the exact 20-minute mark, he says, "We will be on Amazon Prime for our home games. 5 of our home games will be on Amazon Prime." And he later says, "This show, The Breakdown Live, starting in January, will be live on Amazon Prime. The games will be live streaming on Amazon Prime, and they will be reshown a minimum of 5 times each." So They said the phrase Amazon, or they said the term Amazon Prime a lot. And this is huge because the AF1 has not made any sort of announcement other than teasing potential streaming and TV deals. They tease this, they tease that, they hint at this, they hint at that, and he just comes out and says it. And later in the show, he goes on to talk about advertising and how people can advertise with the Predators on a national level now. And not just a local level, but national as well. So it seems like he said that in an attempt to get the ball rolling on some advertisement and sponsorship packages. But again, the league has not made any comment on this, and nor would I expect them to in order to avoid bringing any attention to it. But this is huge if it's true. The NFL currently hosts Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. I think everyone knows that. NFL is one of the largest entertainment groups, leagues, however you want to phrase it, in the world. And so they have a deal with Amazon Prime. They get front page on the app, on your Roku, on your Apple, wherever you're watching, wherever you're pulling up Amazon Prime or Prime Video, it's front and center. I'm having a hard time believing that the AF1 would get a similar treatment and get that front and center treatment. So, what is the benefit of it being on Amazon Prime if that's the case? It just seems like the games are still going to be buried on the app, and it's not going to, I don't think it'll be difficult to find, but it's not going to be something where you open Amazon Prime. Oh, Orlando Predators, there it is. Click. I don't think it's going to be that easy. End of last season, they started streaming the games on YouTube, free access to everybody that has an internet connection. You could pull up the game on YouTube and watch. So, and they're not paywalling the games, but they're kind of paywalling the games where you have to have Amazon Prime or like that subscription that has Prime Video in order to view these games. John Chaney's been known to leak some things from time to time. So there's very, very high chance that it is true, but I'll need to know more. I'll need to know a little bit more information before I can really develop a good take on it. But I think something that was also interesting is that they mentioned 5 of our home games will be on Amazon Prime. They have 6 home games. So there's going to be 6 home games, 6 away games for every team. What does that mean for that 6th home game? If I'm reading between the lines here and based on what has been said in the past, based on what has been teased, based on what has been blurted out on this coach's show, I think they have a national TV deal in place and they're waiting to announce it. And that is why the 6th game is not on Amazon Prime. My theory, strictly theory, I don't know anything for sure, just based on Cheney leaks and other things that have been posted on social media that anybody can find, is that CBS Sports is probably going to be the TV deal that they have in place for, I would imagine, 1 home game for each team throughout the season. So maybe if there's 12 weeks in the season, there ends up being 12 teams. Each team gets a home game as their primetime national TV game of the week. So that's great for the smaller teams like your Wichitas, your Salinas, your Southwest Kansas, like all those smaller market teams, gives a little bit more shine to some of them and shares that spotlight that you're not just seeing the Albanys, you're not just seeing the Billings, you're seeing all the teams that are in the league and you're getting their home arena feel. You're getting their home vibe. So that's my theory. 12 weeks of the season, looking like it's going to be about 12 teams. That makes sense. And I think, again, it'll be a great way to bring some exposure to some of those smaller teams and help legitimize some of the teams outside of the names that are a little bit more, not household, but a little like have a little bit more deep roots in arena football, like your Albany Firebirds and Orlando Predators. So purely speculation. I'm not claiming to know anything. This is just what I'm piecing together and what would make sense for the league and based on where they're at and based on what they've done in the past last season in the playoffs and the way things are kind of shaking out. So we'll see if we get more information on it soon. I hope we do, but we'll keep you posted on the latest on our socials. So make sure you're following us at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball on X/Twitter. Instagram and TikTok for all the latest. We'll drop the latest news, the repost some of the stuff that the leagues are posting. Anything that's going on in the arena and indoor football world, we'll probably have something to say about it on those channels. So go check those out. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, listen. Thanks again to Ernesto for dropping some knowledge on us on kicking, drop kicking, onside kicks, deuces, all that stuff. Go give him a follow on socials if you don't already, and let him know that you heard him on Off the Wall. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go to the show page, rate us 5 stars, share the episode with a friend that you think would like it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that stuff, comment on the video, do all the things and stuff. We appreciate the support so far and looking forward to continuing to build this thing out from here. So only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend like an hour, 5, hour 10, I don't know. We'll see. I think that's close. With me here, listening to me talk about arena football and talking with Ernesto means a lot. So hopefully we'll get some information about AF1 stuff soon. I know I've been saying that for a couple weeks now, but we'll see what happens, and we'll continue to keep track of the signings and announcements coming from the IFL. So take care. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Bye.